Vapidity, Season 1, Episode 8, written wholly by Brian Fredward MacGregor. Episode 8, AM. As the story goes, he was a brilliant technician with a Master of Arts degree, who now, however, lived alone in a swamp, with very little other than a guitar, a few hunting packs, a radio, and various other essentials, like boats and all-weather clothing. He game hunted for everything he needed. It's often said he was a little eccentric, so to speak. Other terms were used, but they are not as important as the story. He was one with nature, it's been said, and was somewhat different as a person overall. As mentioned, he was a technician and built whatever he needed, like clocks and radios, from spare parts, and they kind of worked. They were, however, temperamental, for the want of better words, as the components were, already heavily used. Now, the nearest house to his was miles away, and he only met the rancher himself a few times. He popped over just to say hi when he was a younger man now and then, whilst Mitch had his younger sister around, who rather sadly, mysteriously disappeared. The swamper, Mitch, he said to the rancher, "See you when I'm 50," before laughing it off. The problem was, he wasn't joking, as he saw Roy so very seldomly. In any case, Roy kept to what Mitch said and decided to appear on his 50th birthday. Mitch, he had pretty much forgotten anyway, and was out in his boat fishing as per usual, all by himself. Mitch took no interest in others, for the most part, although he did kind of remember Roy, his one and only visitor over the years. As mentioned, Mitch had one sister, who lived with him, although after a freak storm, she was never found, never ever seen again, almost like she never even existed. Mitch's sister Susie simply vanished, for the want of better words. Now, from what has been said, albeit hearsay, on that occasion, Mitch was away out hunting for himself and his sister. They had to eat, Roy, however, turns up at the home of Mitch on his 50th birthday with some presents. Although he wasn't sure Mitch would be at home and what he would make of the gift, a new guitar, or even he himself turning up unannounced. Mitch had an old one from a while back, and Roy decided to help him out somewhat. The home of Mitch was on stilts, a foot or so out of the water, and it had seen better days. Roy pulls up in his boat, ties it up, then boards the home of Mitch. The swamp was very much alive with the sound of wildlife chirping and cheeping, squawking, and various other natural sounds of the locale are heard pretty much in a deep chorus, which constantly delights Roy, who looks around and gasps in awe by its beauty, with his hand on his waistband. There's a piece of paper which reads, "Make yourself at home, but don't touch anything. You can make yourself a drink and entertain yourself whilst I'm away," which is written in rather brilliant English, although, to be fair, even Mitch knew he would be extremely unlikely to get visitors ever. However, Mitch, left a note just in case, and, well, knowing him, he probably hoped nobody would turn up. Nobody lives in a swamped area and expects masses of visitors day and night. Roy approaches the door and knocks gently, but kind of realises Mitch is away fishing or hunting, as the main boat is away. As he read the note, he wanders in and, well, he was a little shocked to say the least. It wasn't exactly, how could I put it, tidy, yes. That's one way of looking at it, and yes, it wasn't. In any case, at any rate, Roy followed the instructions and did exactly that. After placing down the gifts, he grabbed a seat and had a canned drink which he brought. 2 in fact in total, 1 for himself and 1 for Mitch. He sat around for what seemed an eternity, and as it slowly got darker, he became somewhat concerned. A concern which only grew greater as time passed. As it was starting to get dark, Roy turned on a paraffin lamp, then switched on a solar radio and its battery to offer himself company he had hoped whilst Mitch returned. At this point he switched on the radio and turned it up fully. As it was somewhat small, the radio was set at a strange frequency too. It appeared to be a more antiquated service. Additionally, the radio was dusty beyond belief, like it was never used, as in ever. The radio initially started playing what it seemed static, which then changed rather chillingly to a loud whirring with an almost repetitive electronic wailing of sorts, like what he had never ever heard before in his life. At which point Roy's mobile started acting erratically. Mitch now appears in his boat and pulls alongside. Roy recognises this and is somewhat pleased. Roy heads outside and Mitch waves at Roy and asks him to turn off the radio quickly. Roy holds his hands up at that point, and Mitch races inside and switches off the radio abruptly. He then asks Roy in. Roy walks in, then asks, "What happened, Mitch?" Well, adds Mitch. "Your phone has just been cloned and everything's sent up and above to the great beyond somewhere." Somewhere. Where? asks Roy. "I have no idea," Mitch adds, "but I know one thing, anything on that device is now common knowledge with those who sent the signal." The project was called AM, and it's particularly useful at night and less useful during the daylight hours. "So they know everything?" asks Roy. "Well, everything on that phone. But, I have photos and videos of my partner in the shower on it." Mitch chuckles then adds, "I'm sure it will make interesting viewing." Roy adds, "Oh, now you see why I'm here, and here by myself," Mitch adds. Mitch then says, "The world is wild, and it's getting worse. Those in the know want to know, and want to know it all." Mitch adds, "The more sophistication things have, the easier it is for them to be manipulated. These phones are pretty smart, but not as smart as those who set the signal." He smiles and holds his hands up, palm upwards, whilst shrugging. Roy asks, What do they know? What do they know?" Mitch reaches for a pen and paper, then adds, anything here, whilst pointing at the sheet of paper, holding a pen. Roy gasps then, again in disbelief. Mitch adds, "There is no secrets now in the digital world. In the old school there is a haven." Roy then asks, "So everywhere?" Mitch adds, "If you have a device with a communication of type or of a capacity, then yes." "I was an engineer a long time ago. I was working on a project to do exactly this. The information was carried on a common wavelength back to source." "Source?" asks Roy. "Yes, that's a good question," says Mitch. "Was it successful?" asks Roy. Mitch just nods. "That's a big Roger. Now you see why I left the electronic fields. Once I knew, I knew. I simply added an audio representation of a signal, in other words, so it could be heard." "Wow," adds Roy. "So they know, asks Roy. Yes, they know, and they know I do too. Roy looks into the far distance, so to speak. Mitch smiles awkwardly, somewhat, then adds, the digital world is a dangerous place, filled with zeros and ones. The only safety is through no communication and with nobody at all. Roy then asks, does anyone else know Mitch? Mitch then adds, well, the rest of the team died mysteriously. Only myself is left, and only I know. Alright, adds Roy, who then searches in his jacket for something. There's then several loud bangs, and Roy walks out the cabin, alone. Written wholly by Brian Fredworm MacGregor, a Fredworm production.